Hey, and welcome back. This is episode 2 of the Four Corner Sports Podcast. Here with Tommy Winsauer, Cooper Fry, Brody McCurchie, and Zane Bowling. And today we are going to be focusing on the AFC and NFC tier rankings and winners and losers of the draft and NBA free agency and how that's going and winners and losers of that. That being said, I'm going to give it to Tommy Winsauer as he will be going over the tier rankings of the NFC.
Thanks, Coop. So, I was in charge of ranking the NFC and who I think is going to be good or not in that conference.
Cardinals.
I think that's self-explanatory.
You go from bottom to top.
Yeah. So obviously, Cardinals. They're in a tier of their own, and not in a good way either. I think they're the worst team in the NFL, and they're gonna have the first 2 picks in next year's draft because of a team in the AFC.
Worse than the Bucks.
They didn't get the Texans.
Yeah.
First round pick.
McCoy is going to start for them for the first 6
I
8
forgot
games.
Kyler tore his ACL.
Yeah.
Who do the Cardinals even have?
Kyler,
Literally.
but for half the season.
They're gonna have Marvin Harrison Jr. next year.
Yeah, and they might even draft Caleb Williams. So who knows if they even get number 1.
So the next tier is outside looking in, but it really ranges from outside looking in to like the next worst team. I have it from left to right. I think the Panthers are a really underrated team this year.
They got Bryce Young.
They do. Much to be desired there. I mean, hopefully he does really well, but he is short.
Very short.
And the loss of DJ Moore though.
No, he's just genuinely tiny.
Have you
But
seen
they
the
did
video?
They did get Adam Thielen, and they did get DJ Chark in free agency, which is big for Bryce.
And he did show a lot of talent in college, which is why I have them on I think they're the brink of outside looking in. Then I have the Packers and the Bears. I think they're gonna do like the same thing to each other. Like the Bears are gonna take a step up, but the Packers are gonna take the same step down. And I think they're gonna be on about the same level this year. We talked about last episode how we think Jordan Love is actually underrated and we think he can do good things. We also talked about how Justin Fields is overrated and he could do a lot of bad things. But the Bears did a really good job assembling their team in this offseason. And then you just never know with the Packers. I mean, it looks like they took a step back. So that's where I have them.
I truly think that the Bears can win 7 to 8 games this year. They showed there were some games last year that they only lost by 1 possession, which they obviously could have won, and they got better. They got some better pieces on defense and Tremaine Edmonds, and didn't they get like a DB that was good?
They got Eddie Jackson and Jaquan Brisker, who are a pretty good safety duo, I'd say.
Yeah, and then
They
obviously
drafted Tyreek Stevenson out of Miami.
Yeah, they got Tyreek Stevenson, which I think will be a very good rookie, and of course the DJ Moore addition for Justin Fields will help him immensely. So
I feel like the Packers are at their floor here. I don't think they're any worse than those teams below them. Besides maybe the Bears if Fields breaks out. But I feel like from a roster perspective, they're better than the Panthers. They're better than the Commanders. They're probably better than the Falcons. I think it all really rides on Jordan Love's success this season.
All right, and then for the bottom of the outside looking in, really on the brink. I mean, not on the brink of the Cardinals. There should be another tier in between them just to show how bad the Cardinals really are. But if there was another tier, the brink of it would be the Bucs and the Rams. The Rams are just in a tough division, and their roster is terrible.
Really bad. Like really bad.
Like even if Stafford maintains his level of play, and isn't injured and doesn't take a step back, and Cooper Kupp can have his same record-breaking year, I could see them winning 5 games at most.
They have Donald, Kupp, Stafford, who we don't even know if he's going to be healthy, Sean McVay, and the rest of their team is filled with a bunch of bench warmers that probably don't start on 90% of NFL teams.
See, can I ask you guys a question, too?
Yep.
Why would the Rams draft Stetson Bennett in the 4th round when they need players?
What other starter are you going to get in the 4th round?
Well,
and he's
Brad
a
Holmes
quarterback.
pulled Kirby Joseph.
He's a quarterback.
And James Houston, Amon-Ra, and James Houston in the 6th
doesn't
round.
start. James
Well,
Houston
he got
doesn't
8
start.
sacks.
They also had 9 rookies, or they had like 9 drafted.
Well-
There might have been more than that. They had a bunch of picks, and Stetson Bennett fits their.
I
Yeah,
get it,
it's another
but-
big unathletic white guy that can kind of throw the ball.
but
he is athletic though.
They
He
need
is-
no.
Stetson
He's
Bennett is an
very
athlete.
very
He's-
athletic.
He fits their scheme. They need a backup
His,
quarterback.
his
I don't think it was
mobility,
that, like, bad
his
pick.
mobility is very underrated. But I just feel like they need a player. Like he's just gonna be on the bench, and well, he's not really gonna help them. It's like Hendon Hooker, people, but like the Lions were in the spot to get a backup quarterback and develop one, unless we
But-
want to re-sign Goff.
Yes,
But-
yes, like we should have not. Like Hendon Hooker was a good pick. We're gonna get away from
I-
that because
I
that
mean,
pick was not. We're not talking
You
about
don't
that.
think it was a good pick?
No, I think it was terrible.
Really?
Yes.
So Brody, my question to you is why would they take an older guy like Bennett and like was Dorian Thompson a bit like was he available at that pick?
I believe, yeah, he was.
So why
That's what I
not
was
take
thinking.
a younger, more athletic?
Because it's a scheme fit. I mean, that's what Todd Monken ran, is a lot of the wide zone stuff at Georgia, and then that's what McVay runs. It's just an easy transition. And
Maybe
everybody,
like the Georgia.
they all rave about how smart he is. So, I mean, that's why.
Yeah, the
And-
Ram. Oh, go
So
ahead.
okay.
I was just gonna simply say that the Rams just went all in on their Super Bowl and they got their Super Bowl. Who, like, yeah, they're gonna suck for maybe the next 3 years, but in the end, they did get their Super Bowl. So
And like for the Rams draft, when your team's that bad and you're picking in the 4th round, you're shooting for upside. You're not going to get a starter. If he's a starter, he's a starter on your team. He's not a good starter. He's not even an average starter. And the majority of players in the 4th round are going to be bad. Like some of them might not even make the roster this year, and they're shooting for upside. That's why they took Bennett instead of trying to fill a roster spot.
So now to talk about the Bucks. I mean, there's not much to say here other than you have Baker Mayfield or Kyle Trask being your starting quarterback this year.
I'd rather have Kyle Trask.
I'd rather have Baker, to be honest.
I think Trask sucks. So
Well, they both.
Yeah,
do.
I'd 100% rather have Baker. Trask is trash. So
I think they're both bad, but I think Baker has a little more swagger to him and has the confidence to maybe pull out a couple games.
Oh, 100.
Whereas Trask has like no experience.
Baker will lose them a couple games by being Baker, but he'll also win them some. And
Actually-
Trask is not winning that team any games.
I'm changing my mind. If I am the coach, I'm going to start Kyle Trask, and I'm going to organically tank for Caleb Williams.
All right. Now in my next tier, I have playoff contenders. Starting with the Commanders, I think really the whole NFC East has a chance to make the playoffs. They're all like the top 2 teams obviously separate themselves, but the Giants and the Commanders don't have a terrible roster. And I think I could see either of them in the playoffs, and if not that whole division in the playoffs.
My question to you is, if there's a gap between the Commanders and the Vikings, is there one, and how big is it? Because I feel like there's a gap, at least in my perspective.
There's definitely a gap between the Commanders and the Vikings, and I think we see that on the offensive side of the ball. I think the Vikings have one of the better offenses in the league, but what keeps them, the Vikings, in the playoff contenders and not division winner hopefuls, is their defense. They did almost nothing to help themselves in the offseason, but they did, I feel like, make their offense stronger, even with losing Cook. Alexander Madison is a very capable backup and now starter. And with what wide receiver did they
Jordan
take?
Addison.
Jordan Addison. He can.
He's better than Thielen.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And-
last year Thielen was not like.
Thielen's just old.
And then
He has no juice anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
No,
and then
he's not explosive.
Osborne has a 3, and he stepped up in a lot of big games last year for him. So I think they have a very, very talented offense, but the defense is what keeps them this low.
I have to disagree with the defense part about not doing anything to get better. When you fire Ed Donatel, who was probably the worst defensive coordinator in football last year, and then hire Brian Flores, who's instantly going to be a top 5 defensive coordinator in football, I feel like that swing alone is enough to make your defense significantly better.
Even with their personnel?
Yes. He made the Dolphins, who had no offense and a probably adequate or equivalent defense, win like 8 games, 7 to 8 games. I think he'll do just fine.
Okay. Then now for the Falcons, they have a lot of potential. I mean, quarterback situation, really, really rough. But I think with everyone else, their whole roster outside quarterback has a ton of potential, and I think their upside is playoffs, but their downside is top 10 pick.
Yeah. And for my quarterback rankings, my note with Ritter is the reason this team might suck. That's literally my note because they have a fun, talented offense and a defense who's got a lot better signing Jesse Bates and David Onyemata filling some
They did
holes.
get Jesse Bates. I do remember
Jeff
that.
Okuda.
Question to you guys: Is Kyle Pitts actually going to be used this year?
God, I hope so. He's such a great talent, and I try to draft him in fantasy every single year, thinking they might use it, and then he just never gets targeted.
And then every week he has just one reception for 17 yards. It's a great catch, but it's just
The thing is he was used so interestingly because he was used to put the defensive coordinator in a bind, but not to produce himself. Like he made their rushing attack better because when he comes out in the field, you cannot put a linebacker on him, so you have to come out in nickel personnel. And then you have Drake London on the outside who blocks like a tight end, and then you have a tight end in Kyle Pitts. You have a huge run game advantage, especially when they're in nickel personnel, and that's why they had one of the most efficient rushing attacks last year was because of Kyle Pitts.
and now you have Bijan Robinson,
Who
which
can also play slot receiver.
Yeah.
So if you want to come out in heavy personnel, have fun defending Kyle Pitts and Bijan Robinson, who are pretty much receivers. And that's the bind that Arthur Smith is putting defenses in.
And now to round out playoff contenders, we have the Giants. I think Danny Dimes is kind of on the underrated side. I know this might ruffle some feathers, but I'm a fan of Danny Dimes with his athleticism, the ball placement, but I think he's a decent quarterback. And then Saquon, if he continues to stay healthy, taking those steps, I think the Giants roster can get back to the playoffs this year.
yeah, there's really nothing to say. I used to think that Daniel Jones was underrated as well until he got the massive paycheck, and I was like, okay, Saquon Barkley better get half of that because he kind of got him paid, and they also need to pay Saquon this next year, but we'll just see how they go. I bet they could do the same thing they did as they did this past season. I mean, nothing really special.
I think Danny Dimes, like a stat that I saw with him is they had the 32nd out of like all qualified quarterbacks in depth of target. I think Dable handicapped that offense to make his life as easy as possible for Danny Dimes. But then the biggest thing that excites me for them this year is I think that tackle duo, letting Evan Neal get another year under his belt to get even better. They could have two premier tackles on each side of the ball, which will really help that offense.
All right, and now into
Fun one.
division winner hopefuls.
Let's just admire the second team in that tier. Like, let's
I know.
just admire that the Detroit Lions are in the top half of a chance to do something good this year.
It's really exciting. I know a lot of people are 50-50 on the draft, and that may have like hurt or like bettered your output on the Lions. I know a lot of people in this room, or at least the majority of people in this room, hated that this draft for the Lions. But when I was making this, I really couldn't not put them where they were because of how much improvements they made on the defensive side of the ball, and their offense is going to continue to be very productive with a top 5 offensive line. Jared Goff, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and then J-Mo when he's not healthy, when he's back from a questionable suspension. I think this team's going to be very dangerous.
I think it's going to be fun. I think the draft. I think the draft was fucking terrible. I mean, you can't change my mind. We can talk about it on a different episode. We can go shot for shot. It was fucking terrible. But the question for me is, with the lack of talent at receiver for the first six games, how effective are we going to be offensively? Because Ben Johnson is absolutely amazing, and the way he calls the run game is amazing. But if teams just start playing man-to-man, bringing the safeties down, double team Amon-Ra St. Brown, we need somebody else to step up and separate from man coverage, and that's my question for us. Because if we can do that, we can easily win 11, 12 games.
I am very high on the Lions this year. Unlike Brody, I don't think the draft was great, but I didn't hate it as much as Brody hates it. You guys got your thoughts on what Brody feels on it. I am not as strong on that side of the train, but I think Jahmyr Gibbs is more of a weapon. He's gonna take some targets from J-Mo missing the first 6 weeks on a great gambling. So Brody, you like the gambling rules of the NFL?
Yeah, if he walked 50 steps to the other building where he wasn't in an NFL building,
Well,
it wouldn't have
actually,
mattered.
Actually, he was caught in a hotel on an away game, so he placed a bet in a hotel.
Yeah, if he walked
Yeah.
50 steps
So-
across the street, it would have been totally fine.
Yeah, I know. So it was whatever. That just blows my mind. But I'm very high on this offense. I think the defense made tremendous improvements. I think we have a chance to maybe be a top 15 secondary. We're adding Cam Sutton and CJ GJ. With Tracy Walker coming back, a lot of people don't. They forget about Tracy Walker because he got injured. I believe it was the Vikings game last year. And then we have Kirby Joseph, who was a great ball hawk. He had 4 picks last year, 3 of them against Aaron Rodgers. So I'm very high on this team.
And
What about Emmanuel Mosley either?
I was literally just about to say that. Emmanuel Mosley was the second best corner on the best defense in football last year, so we'll take it.
Just got to clean up some injuries.
So we're gonna take a step back. We got a question about if the Commanders' defense is their strength, and I would have to say yes to that. With Chase Young, and there's a lot of question around there, but there's no doubting his upside. Very big, very physical, and what he did in college was something special. But we just haven't seen that, at least since his rookie year, that much in the NFL. But I think if he can take that step, that defense will be very, very, very good.
I do agree with that. And especially, 2014 to 2018 or something like that? Or it might have been like 2015 to 2019. When you spend those first 4, like you have top 5 pick in each of those drafts, and they're all defensive linemen, you better hope that your front 4 is the best part of your defense. And the Commanders have done a good job in making that the best part of their
Are the
defense.
Commanders keeping Chase Young, or are they trading him?
I think they're looking to trade him. I think they're gonna see what he does after his injury. If he's not as strong, then he probably will get traded, because the Lions are like a top prospect
I was about
to
to say,
get Chase Young if he doesn't succeed. Which him and Hutch, I'd take it.
A couple months ago, the Lions were the betting favorites for Chase Young. So
Do you guys think Chase Young is washed, or do you just think he's due for like a comeback?
He's in his 3rd year in the NFL.
I
so
know, but
4th,
there's
I think.
there's
So I
a
don't
lot
think
of
you call him
people.
washed.
There's a lot of people that say. So the boss I work for, he hates Chase Young. He says he's always gonna be an injured guy.
So he's a Michigan fan.
He is a very heavy Michigan fan. But
Believe it or not.
how could you not just take a swing on this guy? You know what I mean? His production. People think Hutch did great in college. His production was even better.
Yeah.
So can you imagine, like, just say theoretically, if the Lions do get him, lining him up with Aiden Hutchinson, how just nasty that would be?
not to mention like they'd help each other, like drawing defense and having to or getting a lot more one-on-ones with both of them on each side of the ball.
Young's floor is like an older Jadeveon Clowney, where he's still going to be a very good run defender, and he's going to set the edge. I think if you can like get away with not giving up too much, and especially since we didn't take edge in the draft, this would be a good chance to hopefully not overpay for an edge rusher, and that'd be huge for us. But about their defense, I don't know if the Commanders' defense can be considered a strength. I think it's just their defensive line. Maybe it's a strength compared to the offense because their offense is atrocious. But their defensive line could be a top 5 unit in the league. But I think the rest of their defense still has some question marks.
Is their offense really that bad if they have a quarterback that isn't Sam Howell? Because one second, I know Brody doesn't want to jump on this, but they got Jahan Dotson and Scary Terry McLaurin
Gibson isn't bad.
and Antonio Gibson, and they got who's the other Ohio State Curtis Samuel, and he's a gadget guy. So if they have just any type of quarterback that's not Sam Howell, wouldn't their offense be considered more of a strength? Because I'd take that receiving core.
Their running backs suck. Their offensive line is They have no run game at all. And their weapons are good, but compared to the rest of the league, they're probably like, 12 to 16 in there. So I don't know how good it would be. If you need a good quarterback to elevate the rest of that group. You can't have one of those guys that you win with not because he's not going to do much with that group.
That's fair enough. That's fair.
So back to division winner hopefuls. We can go either way. I'm gonna go towards the Saints on this one. I think they win their division because I think the NFC South is one of the worst divisions in football. Not a Saints hater. I love the Saints. I love their roster. Derek Carr.
They got really well with Derek Carr, and then he's gonna ball out with Chris Olave.
Yeah, that roster is really complete. But I mean, yeah, they're in a pretty easy division. I think they make the playoffs, and I think I don't know how they'll do in the playoffs. It really just depends on what they draw, but they're gonna get there.
They'll play the Eagles or the Cowboys round 1 and probably get destroyed. But, that is what it is. My question for you is, so I've seen a lot of people like top 10 Saints team, and I've seen a lot of people like bottom 12 Saints team. And then, are they ranked in division hopefuls because they're the best team in their division, or is it because they're better than the Giants and Vikings?
Now, that is a good question. I think it's because of their division.
Okay.
I
agree.
I would put the Vikings for sure, maybe the Giants above them.
The Giants ranked?
Yeah, that was. Yeah, I can't change that now. That's a picture, not a actual thing I can change. But yeah, I think it is mainly because of their division. I do think they'd be in the playoffs no matter what. But winner of their division always makes the playoffs.
Yeah.
So they would have to be in that category for me at least.
And what do you think the weakness of that team is?
Probably. I mean, I'm gonna be honest. I don't know too much, but I would say line.
Yeah, I would say the interior defensive line is that's what I would go with. But the offensive line has so much upside. Like Penning, McCoy, if he can go back to his Pro Bowl self. Ramchek's we know he's going to be
He's already sweet. But.
Ruiz and Andres Pete. Andres Pete's going to be adequate. And if Ruiz and Penning can take that leap, that can be a really good offensive line.
For sure. Now going to the Seahawks, and if you were here for episode 1, we are all very high on the Seahawks.
We're on the train, baby.
Yeah, we're on the train.
Like the Seahawks.
This is a very good Seahawks team, and the reason they're not in Super Bowl hopefuls is because they have San Francisco 49ers in their division, and the San Francisco 49ers are going to either win the NFC, and there's no question that they're winning that division. So that's the only reason I have them in division winner hopefuls and not any higher.
And they kind of have the Saints issue, right, where we don't know how good that interior defensive line is going to be. They have some interesting pass rush edge guys that could, like Boye Mafe, Derek Hall. I think they're both listed as number 2s right now. Maybe they could step up. But if that group gets solidified and those players step up, do you think that would put them in the Super Bowl hopefuls tier?
Oh, for sure. That would definitely bring them into consideration to win their division. And I don't know, go as far as win the NFC, but it would definitely help them a lot.
You guys already know my thoughts on the Seahawks. They have a very good offense. JSN's going to be Rookie of the Year, and they're going to be in the playoffs.
It really breaks my heart that they took Devon Witherspoon before us. Before us at pick 5 when we had pick 6. But it was a great pick for them. Now that they have second place defensive rookie of the year, Tariq Woolen, who would have won defensive rookie of the year any other year if he didn't have Sauce Gardner to go against. And now that they have Devon Witherspoon,
Hutchinson was second place.
Thank you for that. As a Lions fan, I don't know how you didn't know that.
listen, it's all the same. Tariq Woolen, he led the league at interceptions. I really like Tariq Woolen, and of course, my bad on the Hayden Hutchinson thing. I do love Hayden Hutchinson, don't get me wrong.
He also
Put
took a
respect
picture
on
with
his name.
us. Tariq Woolen also took a picture with us, and he has a sweet chain.
Has a sweet chain. I asked him how much money it was worth. He said too much, and he didn't. That's all he said.
We want him to give it to us. He was not budging.
No, not messing.
So now moving up, we have the Cowboys and Super Bowl hopefuls. I think there's definitely a chance they win their division just because that's a really tough division. But because it's a tough division, you got the Eagles. I just don't know what's gonna happen with them. They're definitely a really, really solid team. Last podcast we said Dak was in a make or break year, so that could definitely help or hinder their chances. But yeah, when you got the Eagles above you though, I just can't see myself putting them any higher than this.
So my question to you is, how small was this or big was this gap last year? Before I go on, I want to ask you that because
two gaps in between.
Was there a huge gap between the Cowboys, Eagles, and 49ers? Because they played at San Francisco and the game was close. So I think 2 gaps in between is kind of stretching it.
I don't think so. I think this is as close as it gets. The Cowboys are a very, very complete roster. Very good offensively, very talented defensively. They just aren't the Eagles or the 49ers.
See, that's my one issue that I had with your list is I think the Cowboys got a lot better this offseason. They added Stephon Gilmore. Yeah, they lost Dalton Schultz, but they drafted Luke Schoonmaker. They got Ferguson. he's gonna help replace that production. And then
School.
Stephon Gilmore on the edge or on the corner, he's your
He
lockdown. I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think so. And he's your lockdown guy, and that allowed Trayvon Diggs to be the ball hawk that he succeeds at. Then the Eagles, I mean, with their additions and subtractions, I think they stayed about neutral. Maybe got a little bit worse, and especially at linebacker and maybe in the secondary. But then I think the Niners got worse. They lost Mike McGlinchey and Daniel Brunskill. They lost two. That's two starting offensive linemen. They lost Aziz Al-Shahir, who's a very good linebacker for them.
Yeah.
He's a very fun and fast player, and they are a linebacker factory, so they might produce some random guy to be really good. And I think their biggest loss for them was Samson Ebukam. When Nick Bosa was drawing double teams, he's a pass rusher that can win on the edge, and I don't know who their number 2 is going to be this year. And I think I might flip the order a little bit up there.
They lost Jimmy Ward and Emmanuel Mosley as well.
Well, Mosley was hurt pretty much all last year, so I didn't really count him. But yeah, I forgot about the Jimmy Ward. He went to Houston.
Yep.
Yeah.
And they lost D'Amico Ryans.
That is a huge loss too. And then the Cowboys still have Dan Quinn.
So we'll see.
That's gonna be fun.
But yeah, into the Super Bowl favorites. I think the NFC is a very top-heavy division, but I think it's balancing out, like especially with the Lions, the Seahawks, the Saints, all on the rise. Giants maybe on the rise. Bears definitely on the rise. It's definitely balancing out, but these top 3 teams just, I mean, it's extremely top-heavy. To your point, I'm huge Kyle Shanahan.
For sure.
Huge on Kyle Shanahan. I think he takes this roster back to the NFC Championship. I think he coaches a lot of these nobodies into people that can play. And then just the Eagles. I mean, how do you take that team and just get better? I think you could see a rematch in the NFC Championship.
Where do you think they got better at?
I think they got better just on the offensive side of the ball with DeAndre Swift. I think DeAndre Swift is very underrated if he can stay healthy. And that is the big thing, is if he can stay healthy.
I could just see Zane getting ready to go off.
That's a very, very big if on DeAndre Swift being healthy. How many times have we said that in Detroit? Oh, if DeAndre Swift could be healthy, man, he'd be the next Barry Sanders. How many times, Brody?
Every year.
Every year. I thought he would lead the NFC in rushing yards last year. After week 1, he does great. We almost beat the Eagles. Week 2, oh no, he's got a fractured toenail. He's out for 6 weeks. This guy is never going to stay healthy. He's not going to do it with the Eagles. He couldn't do it with the Lions. I don't care. Like people act like the Eagles' offense is way better. I'm sorry, the offensive line is way better than the Detroit Lions. It's not. They're both top 5 offensive lines.
Both top 3.
And do the Eagles play in the outside stadium?
Yes, they do.
So they don't play in a dome. So it's going to be cold. He's going to get banged up even worse. He couldn't do it in Detroit. He's not doing it in Philadelphia. I'm sorry, Tom.
I do think with the running back room, though, adding Rashad Penny, I think this is one of the most slept-on backs in the league, and I think that's going to be the huge addition. But they also lost Isaac Seumalo, and he went to Pittsburgh, and that's going to be a big loss. I don't know how they're going to replace him. I don't know if they're going to put Cam Jurgens to guard to try and replace him. We'll see how that goes. I don't know if this team got much better last year.
And at the linebacker room,
White and Edwards.
Right, and they have people are very high into Kobe Dean out of Georgia. I get it. My cousin's a big Georgia fan. He talks about Kobe Dean all the time, but he's basically a rookie this year. He got very, very minimal snaps last year, so he's basically a rookie coming in, and it's tough to just be thrown into the fire like that. Like you've seen Rodrigo, he wasn't the best starting because he started immediately,
And he got all that experience.
right. So it's just, and he's probably not even going to be a starter this year.
And then I think their biggest losses were probably Marcus Epps and Chauncey Gardner-Johnson on the back end.
Didn't they lose Hargraves too, or did they resign him?
They did lose Hargrave to the 49ers, which is going to be – that was their biggest addition, which will be fun. But they did replace him with Jalen Carter. So
Right.
I'm not going to – I think that almost balances it out.
And Nolan
See,
Smith.
And I know they have
He's gonna play edge.
I think that's where the Eagles improved is through the draft.
and I get that they have Jordan Davis too, which is another defensive tackle out of Georgia, but he's very injury prone too. I mean, at Georgia, and he's a 2-down
He's a
defensive
premium run
tackle.
defender, though.
Yes, he's very good. He's a run stuffer. That's why I think Jalen Carter will be very good too, because he's more he could pass rush a little bit. But Jalen Carter is Jordan Davis is a very injury prone player too. Like look at last year. He had 8 solos, no sacks. I think like 15 combined tackle, season total tackles. I know, but people are like, oh my gosh, his 40-yard dash is amazing. He's breaking off. He's better than Ndamukong Suh. He's getting 50 sacks this year. It's like, no, he's not that type of player.
And how much does Nolan Smith even play? You have Josh Sweat and Hassan Reddick who are going to rush the passer alongside Brandon Graham, who I don't know how many sacks he. I wanna say it was close to double digits. Derek Barnett's going to be their 2-down edge run stopper, but like you still have 3 solidified pass rushers. How much does Smith even impact the team right away?
I think very minimally. I think he's going to get a lot because they're a very good team and they're going to be up in the 4th. So I think he's going to get some very valuable garbage time minutes. Okay. And that's not even like to not get a knock on the dude. This is just a very good team. It's very.
We love Nolan Smith.
Yeah, he's a very talented player, and he's coming off an injury. He tore his pec at Georgia during the season. So I think they're going to work him in. I think he's going to be a very talented player, but it's just he's not going to go off on this first year like everyone thinks he is.
We got Kelly saying W rant Zane, so I think we just all need a round of applause for Zane there. And then, I will never agree Swift has injury issues because, I mean, I can agree now. He definitely does have injury issues, but
Swift is garbage.
He's no longer a Lion. We can say he's had injury issues now.
But you cannot deny his upside. He has top 5 receiving back upside. So if he can stay healthy, I think he makes that Eagles offense a ton better. So enough about the NFC. Enough with me. Enough of DeAndre Swift.
Lions to the bowl.
Lions to the bowl. Lions to the bowl. I'm gonna hand you off to Brody, and he's gonna do our AFC rankings.
So when Tommy flips this graphic up there about the AFC, we're gonna let Cooper take you down because he likes the Texans this year to do some fun things. So we're gonna let Cooper talk about them real quick.
I am also, before Cooper starts, very high on the Texans. I'm a big CJ Stroud believer. I think he's going to come in, be a very accurate quarterback. I do not think he's going to be a game manager like everyone thinks he's going to be. They have Derek Stingley ready for a breakout year, and I think they're going to be very good. Also, Will Anderson, people sleep on him. I think he has the potential to break the rookie sack record. I do not think he's going to do it, but that is all the talk.
I don't really know what to think about the Texans, if I'm being honest. They do have a good secondary with Jimmy Ward and Derek Stingley. They have somewhere to go with those two. And then, of course, Will Anderson, trading up for him and giving up your future. You better hope that he's a Hall of Fame type guy, but he was the 3rd overall pick. And
see, how do you feel about them trading up and giving up all that?
Terrible.
Really, you don't like it?
You're trading up for Stroud when you're probably going to be in the.
They traded up for Will Anderson.
No, they traded up. They traded up for Stroud. No. They were going to draft. The coaching staff was going to draft, and the GM, they were in on Anderson. That was the pick. Okay. The ownership wanted Stroud. They traded up for Stroud, but they were going to take Anderson.
I get it. But they had to pick Stroud first because someone would have traded for Stroud and not. Yeah.
The Colts were at 4. And somebody would have traded up to 3 to take
Stroud. So they had to take
first. But
Stroud
Anderson
first.
was their pick. They traded up for Stroud. They wanted Anderson. And I think that's terrible because you have Luke May and Caleb Williams. And the biggest question to me, Drake May. Drake May. They're all the same, right? The biggest question to me is why do you trade your pick next year, not the Browns?
I just want to say something real quick. Kelly's calling you out, Zane. He said you went from really good to loving CJ Stroud. I just want to give you the chance to respond to Kelly.
What did he say?
He said you went from really good to loving CJ Stroud. I just basically
really good. What?
I don't know.
Like you were having good takes, and then you said you love CJ Stroud.
Yeah, you're saying he was really good. Now you love him.
You can love him as a player.
So I said he was really good, and now he's coming at me because I said he's gonna be really good still. Is this seriously what we're doing right now?
I don't know.
So I said he's very good, and then he's coming at me because I said he's gonna be pretty good in the NFL too. I don't know either, Tommy.
What he said.
Here, let me read this on air. Zane went really good to loving Stroud.
His grammar went from really good to really bad, so it's okay.
Okay. So I'm all right. I think he meant like my take on Swift was from really good to loving C.J. Stroud. I mean, we all know Kelly. He is a Michigan fan.
Okay. Let's get back on topic.
No, what? I'm not. I say we all know Kelly's a Michigan
I thought
fan.
you were about to start hating on
No. He's a Michigan fan. He's. I don't know what else to say. Stroud he's probably going to come in and be a top 10 most accurate quarterback in the league. I would take him over anybody. I like his running.
Well,
I don't know.
I think that might be a little.
His
generous.
accuracy to me
It's really good.
is very good.
Top 10.
Okay, that might have been a stretch, but I really like his upside. And everyone came at him at Ohio State for not running the ball. Why would you run the ball when you have 4 of the top
NFL
10
receivers?
Yeah, 4 NFL receivers on your team.
And 2 very solid running
So-
backs. Like we can't get
Trayvon Henderson,
My question to you is, how high do you think his upside is?
I don't think it's as high. Okay, like his ceiling
Yes.
compared to Bryce Young, I don't think it's as high as Bryce Young's ceiling could be, but I think his floor is better than Bryce Young, if you know what I mean.
But yeah, Stroud did go 0-2 against Michigan. You're right about that.
Okay.
We love our Wolverines. Yeah, but he meant Stroud because Swift didn't play Michigan.
Yeah, but Stroud still lit it up. Was it Stroud or was it Ryan Day? That's what I would say to that. Stroud can't play defense. He threw for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns, and he still lost the game. What else is he supposed to do?
They scored 23 points in the second game. So, I mean,
And the first
That's
game,
not enough
Hutch
to win a
had,
college
Hutch
football
had
game.
15 quarterback pressures.
Yeah, 3
The first
sacks.
game, I was like, okay, there's not really much you can do. And he still threw for 300 yards.
if you look, our offense our defense was game plan to let them move the ball and then try and stop them when they get in the red zone.
We beat them at their own game.
I think that Michigan is
We all game plan them.
they're set up to beat Ohio State, but I think Ohio State's team is set up to beat all
win
those
national
to win
championships.
national championships.
But we do have to get back on subject. a
Okay,
little
yeah,
bit
we'll
here.
get back on. Thank you, Kelly, for the comment. I actually really enjoyed that.
If you look at-
Keep rolling them in.
If you look at the tier maker, we have the Texans in their own team tier, sort of like the Cardinals. But this is not as bad of a Texans team as we've seen. My first note for these guys was this is the first year in a while this is an actual football team. They got Jack Easterby out of the organization. That was probably the most important thing they could have done. And if you don't know who that is, you probably should look into that because that was a terrible situation. But they have a fun team. I mean, they got Stroud. They got Damian Pierce. They have a really good tackle duo. Laramie Tunsil and Titus Howard is legit. That's a legit tackle duo. And then defensively, Will Anderson, Christian Harris, Derek Stingley, you just want to look for progress throughout the season from those guys. And I think that will be there because those are all super talented players. And then at 15, we got the Raiders. This team is,
Abysmal.
yeah. The offense, you got Devontae Adams. You got Colton Miller.
I was about to say, how much is he really even gonna care?
He wants
That's a
Obviously he's gonna ball out, so he does want to go to another team and get paid there. But how much is he really gonna produce because he doesn't want to be there?
he wanted to play with Carr, and then they traded Carr. Yeah. So, but Tay's great. Colton Miller's a really good offensive lineman. Josh Jacobs is a really good player.
Yeah.
But you got Jimmy G.
He hasn't even been paid.
You got Jimmy G, who needs everything else around him to elevate him. They have an offensive line that, aside from Colton Miller, is terrible. Michael Mayer should start. I mean, I think right now Austin Hooper's listed the starter. If Michael Mayer doesn't start by week 4, I think that team's just a total joke. And defensively, man, I mean, Max Crosby, Chandler Jones, and Tyree Wilson, that's going to be a really fun pass rushing duo. But aside from that, what is there to look forward to on that team? Trayvon Merrick, maybe.
I honestly have no clue about the Raiders. I just know that they're gonna suck. There's no other way to really put it. Yeah, they might get to the quarterback here and there, but
See, the Raiders, though, in the NFL, they bring in a lot of publicity. They get a lot of ratings. So for the NFL, they are very valuable. So they're still going to get a lot of ratings. They're going to get some primetime games because black and gray for the NFL equals green because they just roll in money.
Especially after they move to Vegas.
Yes.
And at 14, this is a team that I think we all are. I don't know if we're super high on, but we think is just going to be super fun. We think it's just going to be super fun. And we have the Colts, and they had Anthony Richardson. What else do I have to say? Anthony frickin' Richardson. And then they have this terrible receiving core with Michael Pittman, and the rest are players that probably shouldn't start, and then you got
Jonathan Taylor bounced back here.
and then you have Jonathan Taylor and a very good offensive line, and this is going to be a premium rushing attack.
It's gonna be.
Can you guys believe we drafted Swift over Jonathan Taylor? Seriously, I can't believe that. All I heard. No, he wasn't. No, he wasn't. All I heard is, how Jonathan Taylor was beat up in college. They ran him too much. Swift is coming. He didn't get ran as much. He wasn't beat up. Look how that worked out. Thank you, Matt Patricia.
I did have I was kind of even with those guys, but I do think Swift was the better prospect. I think he was the right pick at the time. Obviously, been proven wrong on that, but I mean,
as long as we drafted one of those two at the time, I was good with it. But then, honestly, we just got unlucky.
I wasn't into college football as much then as I am now. But the one thing I can remember from the Michigan-Wisconsin game is why can't we stop this guy? So, yeah, I mean, I can see why people looking back, obviously, why Jonathan Taylor maybe would have been better, but at the time, Swift was the right pick.
and all this good we're talking about this rushing attack because we are super high on it. The passing attack is it's going to be babied, so the job is going to be babied like Daniel Jones, kind of like they did with Hurts last year and Fields. So it's going to be babied, so it's easier on the quarterback. And then the defense, they have a very talented defensive line. They got DeForest Buckner, Grover Stewart, Kwity Paye. I think this is where Samson Ebukam went to. I believe this is where he signed with. And then they got Shaquille Leonard, formerly Darius Leonard. But other than that, and then they got EJ Speed, but that's going to be a decent run-stopping pairing.
I will never call him Shaq Leonard. It will be Darius Leonard, and he won't ever be as good as he was because he changed his name. I will retweet that right now.
But this secondary is terrible, and there's no going around it. You got a good slot corner, and then everybody else should not start.
Hold on, Fieldsy's mad we don't respond to comments. He said, "Oh my goodness, look at these lads." Thank you, Fieldsy. We appreciate it. Keep the comments coming.
Yes, we absolutely love the interaction. Thank you, sir. Make sure to like it while you're down there. But yeah, this team is just it's fun, but it's bad. And then I have a really these Patriots, Broncos, Steelers, Titans. This is a very very close knit group, and the Titans here they have the worst group of the weapons in the league, and they might have the worst offensive line in the league, and they're switching their coordinator. They don't have I forgot his name, but he's not there anymore. They're not going to be running this wide zone scheme with Derrick Henry, which he was really good at last year. He's not the fastest once in a 0 to 10, but once he gets going in that wide zone scheme, he's
stopping that. You ain't stopping.
He's really hard. He's really hard to bring down, and he's one of the best backs in the league. But defensively, Mike Vrabel is going to coach this team up.
Yeah.
And they got stars, Jeffrey Simmons, Kevin Byard. Their linebacking core is pretty abysmal. But Mike Vrabel is going to coach this team up and probably coach them to 7 or 8 wins. I don't think this is on paper it's a really bad team, but because of Mike Vrabel, he elevates the floor of this team so much.
Mike Vrabel could make a high school defense a top 15 defense in the league. So I'm gonna give credit to him, but they aren't gonna do anything special.
And my question for you guys is: do you want Will Levis to start by week 10?
No. Will Levis absolutely sucks.
I think if you're at 7 or if you're on pace to get 7 or 8 wins, I think you want to give Will Levis time to play and see what he's got. You give him 10 weeks, 2.5 months to develop. I think you want to let him play a little bit.
I think with Tannehill, I think you kind of give him the Jordan. I mean, not entirely Jordan Love treatment, but maybe give him a game, see how that goes. But ride with Tannehill, because he got a lot of hate in Miami and Tennessee. But as you said in the first podcast, he won them quite a bit of games last year.
Yeah, he got
1-4 without him.
Yeah. He got him to an AFC Championship 2 years ago or 3 years ago.
So I think you let Levis play a game or two, see how he reacts to NFL pressure, and then let him loose next year.
Okay, maybe 7 games is a bit much, but I think you definitely want to see a little bit. Zane, what are your thoughts on Will Levis?
See, me personally, I think Will Levis is terrible, but I can see his NFL upside. Big arm, mobile, eats mayo in his coffee. No, he puts he puts mayo in his coffee. See, I think I would put Will Levis in, especially if this team is struggling, because if you guys are gonna. If they're gonna win 3 games this year, you might as well do it with Will Levis and try to develop him.
Well, if they're that bad, I will be shocked.
Well, but you know what I mean, though. Like, if they're not going anywhere, just might as well put Will Levis, because they drafted Malik Willis last year, So
That went great.
they did.
This is the Titans.
Yeah, we're on the Titans. So they drafted. You're gonna have to play one of these guys eventually. You know what I mean?
Malik Willis did play a couple games last year.
Yeah. How'd that go?
I don't think Will Levis can be much worse. And speaking about rookie quarterbacks, we got the Steelers right above them. This is another team that is super, super well coached. Mike Tomlin, year in and year out, has been an elite NFL coach.
Never had a losing season.
And this is a really fun team. You got young guys all over at skill positions. You got Najee Harris, Deontay Johnson, George Pickens, Pat Freiermuth, Darnell Washington, Kenny Pickett. Like, this is going to be a fun offense, but it's going to be terrible because they have Matt Canada, and they didn't fire Matt Canada. That is probably the worst interim personnel decision that I've seen this year. And it was just, I mean, it's just a joke. It really is a joke. But the big question for me is, can TJ Watt stay healthy? Because when he stays healthy and this team can rush forward and play that press man-to-man they drafted Joey Porter Jr. to play and get pressure with four and him and Alex Highsmith, this can be a really like a top 5 defense. And it's not top 5 talent-wise, but because of the coaching and because of TJ Watt, it can be. But if he's hurt and they can't get pressure with four, this is going to be a super long season for these guys.
Nothing really to say. When he's healthy, he's the 3rd best defensive player in the league. So
I got to agree. I mean, Tomlin is going to keep this team afloat, and I could see him winning anywhere from 9, 10, 11 games. So.
And then at 11, we got the Broncos, and they made probably one of the best changes that you could make this year, going from Nathaniel Hackett to Sean Payton, who everybody here knows how big of a Sean Payton believer that I really am. I think he's he might be third best offensive coach in the league this year behind behind Shanahan and Reed. And then this wide receiving core is super fun. You got Tim Patrick, who's your 3, who's like not a bad player at all. KJ Hamler's explosive. And then you got Jerry Jeudy and Cortland Sutton. And everybody here also knows how big of a Jerry Jeudy guy I am. I think this is the year that he really can take a step forward with a competent offensive coach. And Russell Wilson, who's not a bad quarterback. And then defensively, this team is talented. They lost.
And Javonte Williams coming back.
Yeah,
from
Javonte
injury.
Williams. And Samaje Perine, who's like a good number 2 running back.
Yeah.
Like, he's a good player. This defensively, though, they lost Chubb. Yeah. That was midseason, but they saw some random flashes from players like Baron Browning on the edge. But if you look at that secondary, Justin Simmons, Pat Surtain, that is a star-filled, stellar secondary. We don't know how good they'll be defensively against the run, but their secondary is going to lock down. And if they had a little better coaching, if they had the Belichick effect, they'd probably be above the Patriots, but they don't. And speaking of the Belichick effect, another one of the great personnel decisions that was made this year was getting rid of Matt Patricia. Zane, what do you think about hiring Matt Patricia to run your offense for a season? I know you have big opinions on this.
To run the Patriots offense?
Yes.
He's one of the worst head coaches I think there's ever been. I hate the guy. Every time he got up after a loss with his unshaven beard, looking like we got him from a homeless shelter with a pencil in his ear, I couldn't stand the guy. I think anytime you fire him, you make a great choice. I can't stand the guy. Great choice, Bill Belichick.
And Bill O'Brien is a really good offensive coordinator. He's not the head coach type, but he's a very good offensive coordinator. So I think when they get Bill O'Brien too, that will bring D-Hop to the Patriots. That's where I think he will go. And you think it's because of Bill O'Brien?
I don't think it's purely because of Bill O'Brien, but I think that could help because I know that they have history, and I know it's not all good history, but I think that's where D-Hop will feel the most comfortable, and that's why I think he will be going to the Patriots.
And then this defense, I don't even have to say much about Bill Belichick. It's not the most talented. It's not the best at all, but it's the best coached. And it's going to be a top 10 unit, probably a top 5 unit just because of that. Everybody on their team has a specific role that they play, and they play it really well, and Belichick makes sure they play that role. He's the best at personnel deployment that I've ever seen, besides maybe the only person that's close is Andy Reid, and nobody comes close on the defensive side of the ball. Then offensively, getting Bill O'Brien, the wide receiving core still sucks, but you got Hunter Henry and Gesicki, who are like an tight end room. They're average. I'd say about league average. You got a good offensive line. You got Ramondre Stevenson. They're going to be able to run the ball. And if Mac Jones can take the step forward from his rookie season that I think he can, this could be a team that sneaks in as a 7 seed. And then Cleveland at number 9. Thomas, what do we think about Cleveland here?
I don't know about but I don't know. I mean, Deshaun Watson, you have a lot to prove. Nick Chubb, I mean, there's nothing to prove there. I mean, he's just one of the best in the league. Personally, I'm not super high, but I can see why you are high on them.
Who would you have them above or below? Who would you put above them?
I mean, Patriots. I mean, I know that's not division. Steelers for sure. Maybe Broncos. Like that. Those three right there are all could be considered.
I fully understand. And you think the gap is Deshaun Watson?
Yes. There's just a lot to prove there.
I get that for sure. But I think I'd say the second or third. I've talked about some big personnel changes today. Getting rid of Joe Woods. Ed Donatel was the worst. Joe Woods was probably the second worst defensive coordinator in football last year, and they replaced him with Jim Schwartz, who I think is going to be a huge upgrade. And they also brought in Elijah Moore. They got Amari Cooper, Donovan Peoples-Jones, Elijah Moore. Like that's a good wide receiver tandem. They have the best runner of the football in the league, in my opinion, with the second best offensive line. If Watson can at least not shit the bed like last year and play, if he plays up to his upside, you got to bump him up a whole tier. But if he shits the bed, I mean, playoff contention might be generous, and that's the issue. But defensively, they still have Myles Garrett. They filled in holes with Siaka Ika and Dalvin Tomlinson. Those are going to be huge holes to help them stop the run better. That was their biggest downside last year. They could not stop the run. And with them at nose and Tomlinson at 3-tech, I think that bolsters that defense tremendously. Zane, what were you going to say?
Oh, no, I was just going to comment on Siaki Ika. I'm very high on him as you. I was kind of hoping the Lions would pick him up in the third round. I know you and me were actually texting about it.
Not Broderick Martin?
Yes, not Broderick Martin. To be honest, I really didn't know anything about Broderick Martin coming out, but I did know Siaki Ika. But, we'll see. Brad Holmes really hasn't let us down yet, so maybe, why start now?
Well, he did draft Levi Onwuzurike in the second round.
Yeah, but he's still here. We don't know. He might be a flash in the pan.
We know.
We don't know, Brody.
I think we know. My issue with that pick of Broderick Martin was just Siaki Ika was on the board.
I agree. I really don't know what to say on that other than believe in Brad Holmes, and that's all I really can say on that.
I just can't blind believe in anybody. Unless it's Steve Eiserman.
You just came and said Steve Eiserman would be...
I just said unless.
Okay.
I just said less. Steve
Eiserman
Eiserman also won 2 Stanley Cups.
That's fair. And Brad Holmes is about to win a Super Bowl in the next 4 years.
We'll see. And then at 8, we got the Jags. And this team is this is a very, very, very good football team. And they were at number 8 in their own conference. That just should tell you how good this conference is. The big question mark to me is how are they going to replace Cam Robinson and Jawan Taylor? They have Walker Little and Anton Harrison. Those guys are going to play left and right tackle, I believe, for them. If they can step up and be good starters and keep the offensive line intact, and Luke Fortner can step up on the interior, and Lawrence can keep progressing, this team, you could bump this team high. You could bump this team in the Bills tier because they'd be the bottom half, but you could bump this team up because of that play. And then defensively, if Josh Allen can take a step forward, he had a down year last year. If Josh Allen can take a step forward, and if Trayvon Walker can take that next step, this defense could be really, really good. They need somebody to take the leap that Tyson Campbell made last year, and if somebody can do that, this defense could be very good, and this team could be bumped up a couple tiers.
The Jaguars are a great team. Watching them come back and beat the Chargers was really fun, and they gave.
No, it wasn't. I had money on that game. No, it wasn't.
I'm sorry about that, Tom.
We did not have money on that game. We were underage. He was just joking.
And
under the table money. No sports books. Friendly bets.
And
we were betting what, like high fives and handshakes?
Yeah, Hershey's Kisses actually. Sounds about right.
But I will thank them for drafting Trayvon Walker over Aiden Hutchinson. That was just a great pick as a Lions fan. I cheered more when they picked Trayvon Walker just because I knew we got Aiden Hutchinson.
We do have to wait. We have to see the verdict on that. But so far, Hutch looks like the man compared to Walker.
I'm with you. I like Aiden Hutchinson better than Walker. I will forever be thankful. Well, I might end up eating my words if Trayvon Walker develops in what he can be, but I am very high on Hutch. But, Brody, so do you have the Dolphins over the Jaguars?
Yes, it's left to right is highest.
That might be the only thing where I'd be like, I might just flip-flop those two because I think the Jags are in just such a bad division that I think they'd almost have to be trying to lose their division. But other than that, I think your board is very, very good. I wouldn't change really anything besides flip
I
flopping.
will say I have Miami above them because I think they're better, not really counting in that the Jags are in the weaker division.
Oh, so yeah, I just saw the division hopefuls. And
Okay, I understand.
Yeah, so you know what I mean. That's why that's the only reason I would really bump up the Jaguars. Other than that, I think your list is perfect.
They definitely have a better chance to win the division than Miami for sure.
Okay, so and the reason why Miami isn't in Super Bowl hopeful is because of Tua, and they're in the same division as the Bills and Jets.
It's because Tua and their offensive line, and we don't know how consistent run game's going to be. And honestly, they got question marks at wide receiver 3. Gesicki's gone. I mean, Waddle and Hill are amazing. There's that's the best 1-2 in the league. But who's catching passes for them besides those two? I really don't know. Are you counting on River Craycraft or Durham Smythe? They still have questions at tackle. Where I'm more optimistic.
Raheem Mostert's still there?
I believe so. They also drafted Devin Achane, I think it was. Yeah. And he fits their wide zone scheme amazingly. Where I'm more optimistic, why they're above the Jaguars, I think this could be straight up the best defense in the NFL.
Xavier Howard, Jalen Ramsey, Bradley Chubb.
I saw
Jalen Phillips had a good year.
I saw a thing.
Watkins,
It was like top
Wilkins.
10 defense in the NFL. They had the Dolphins at 12, and I thought that was terrible.
Yeah.
They have. I mean, they look top to bottom. I don't see a player that's not like an above average starter. They got at edge. They got Jalen Phillips and Bradley Chubb, both better than above average starters. And the linebacker, they just signed David Long from Tennessee, who's amazing, underrated signing. They got Jerome Baker. Interior defensive line, they got Christian Wilkins, who is one of the most underrated players in the league, and Zach Ziller, who's also that is a Belichickian defensive nose tackle right there. He's really
I
good.
like that word. Belichickian.
Yeah, this is a Belichickian ran defense. Even though they did fire, I think it was Josh Boyer, if that was his name. That was their defensive coordinator, who I think is amazing. I don't know why, but they did replace him with Vic Fangio, who's probably the top 5 defensive coordinator in the league. Hopefully, he gets away from his quarters scheme that he likes to run, and lets, like we talked about, Jalen Ramsey and Xavier Howard play press man. They also have Kader Kohu as he's going to play nickel. He's a very underrated. He's probably like a top 10 rookie last year. That's how good he was as a nickel back. And then we already know how good Javon Holland and Brendan Jones are. Like, this is a top to bottom, well coached. Should be well coached. Hopefully, Fangio makes a little adjustments to his scheme. Super well coached and super talented defense. And speaking of well coached and super talented defense, we got the Jets. Tommy, I know you're very high on this Jets defense. Can you tell the viewers why?
I mean, just what's not to like? I mean, Sauce, I think top. I mean, he could have been a top 5 in the NFL. I mean, not just best rookie.
Top 3.
Yeah.
Well, he was all pro.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he was
I mean,
amazing.
He was like a top 3 corner.
He might be
last
number
year.
1, arguably.
You could make an argument.
And then, I mean, just with additions on offense too. I mean, not just defense. I mean, Aaron Rodgers. I mean, I know he didn't look great in Green Bay last year, but I mean, it's better than Zach Wilson. I mean, he's gonna definitely help.
Just a little bit.
Definitely gonna help.
Better than Zach Wilson.
Definitely gonna help Garrett Wilson in the passing game, and then just I mean, what's not to like about this team?
Yeah, and keeping Alan Lazard will keep Aaron Rodgers happy. And we were robbed of a very good Breece Hall year. Breece Hall probably would have won Rookie of the Year if he didn't get hurt, which hopefully he bounces back and becomes healthy. And let's hope for a good Breece Hall year.
Isn't that insane, though, that Breece Hall probably would have won Rookie of the Year? And then Garrett Wilson actually won it.
Kenneth Walker should have won it, but
No, Garrett Wilson played.
Garrett Wilson should have won it.
Yeah, Garrett Wilson played way more. It was Garrett Wilson's to win. And they also have Sauce, which is defensive rookie of the year.
And Sauce Gardner all in the same year.
So how crazy is that? Like, that's just such a good rookie class.
It is amazing, and I love this team. I'm a Patriots fan. They're my second favorite team, but I absolutely love.
I'm just watching.
Oh yeah, this the clips we got going in the back.
This Jets dude in the middle of the Cleveland Browns stands. It was the most New York Jet fan I've ever seen.
But this team, they got a lot of potential at offensive line. If Elijah Vera Tucker can keep playing well, and I think the big X factor for these guys is Mekhi Becton. If he can come back and play like he played his rookie season, that could be a huge factor for them. And I think Garrett Wilson's a premium wide receiver 1. I think he is
Yes.
he's a top 10 receiver. I'm gonna say it. I really think he is. I think he is that good.
Whoa.
I think he's that guy. I do. I think this year, by the end of the year, he'll be in the top 8 range. I think he's amazing. And then we already know how good this defense is. They're deep everywhere. They're really deep at corner. They're deep at edge. And they just drafted Will McDonald this year as well. Jermaine Johnson the year before. I mean, they're like, and John Franklin Myers is going to start from them. They're like 4 to 5 deep at edge with quality, like at league average starters, which for 4 and 5s are really amazing.
Jermaine Johnson, the defensive end out of Florida State.
Correct. Yeah.
I was
The one
high
who
on
can
him.
catch Josh Allen if Josh Allen rolls out of the pocket.
the sole reason they drafted him. That was kind of sweet though. But yeah, honestly, I'm super high, and I'm playing in a couple of fantasy leagues against these guys next to me, and if they take Garrett Wilson, I will punch them in the mouth. And then at 5 we got the Chargers. I think they made huge improvements this year too. Another huge personnel change, getting rid of Joe Lombardi and getting Kellen Moore.
Did they fire Staley?
No, Staley we're good with. He made adjustments in the back end. He was the one that shut down the Dolphins offense solely with some of the adjustments that he made. Run a lot of that man press, making Tua throw the ball outside the numbers. He couldn't do it. Team went to shit. It was a great game by Staley. But they added Darius Davis, Quentin Johnston. They're getting their field stretchers back. They're going to actually be able to stretch the field vertically this year instead of just horizontally. And then
Is it crazy to say that the Chargers have a top 5, maybe even top 3 receiving threat?
as a group, I would say that's a little crazy. Quentin Johnston, if he solidifies himself, then I would agree. But
Quentin Johnson has to prove
that's a big Keenan Allen, Mike Williams is hurt all the time.
And then Austin Eckler, one of the best receivers.
That is a good point. And they have Jared Everett at tight end, who's an athlete. He's an athlete in space. He's a good athlete. He's a good player. And this offensive line is good. They got a name that, which is just funny to me, is they got Trey Pipkins and Jamari Salyer. These guys are later round picks that turned out to be good starters for them.
But it's a matter of fact if they can stay healthy. Didn't they have Will Clapp starting at center?
Yeah, and Slater
In the
got
playoff
hurt.
game? Yeah.
Slater got hurt, which is a huge issue. And they got a good offensive line. Defensively, I think this is a very well coached unit. And they headed freaking Eric Kendricks, man. You talk about you want a linebacker that's going to allow you to play the coverages you want because he's so good. That's Eric Kendricks.
he's a dog.
And then you got Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa coming off the edge. You got Sebastian Joseph Day. I believe they have Greg Gaines maybe they don't have Greg Gaines, but they have SJD.
Yep.
And he's gonna clog up the middle. He's a good player. And this is gonna be a really fun team to watch.
And then Derwin and Asante in the secondary.
And Michael Davis is their corner
Michael
too, and he's so underrated. He's just good. He's never gonna be bad. He's never gonna be great. He's gonna be a good starter for them, and that's all they really need from him.
Kelly says McDonald will be a stud. Hopefully.
I think I think the pick sucked, but he's gonna be a good player. I don't think the upside, if you're drafting an edge at 15 when you could have traded up for a guy like Lucas Van Ness, or you could have just sat there and taken Nolan Smith. You can go on a guy with a little higher upside than Will McDonald, but I think he will be a good player. I don't really see him being bad. And then at 4, these guys, I really wanted to bump the Ravens up. Are you gonna roll the clips? This guy right here, Lamar. I love Lamar. Everybody loves Lamar, besides white hillbilly NFL fans. But
It's not the style of play they want to see from a quarterback.
yeah, they want that drop back, spread the ball.
Tom Brady style quarterbacking.
Yeah, bring the lunch pail to work kind of guys. That's what they want. But Lamar Jackson, we'll watch the score. It'll change here pretty shortly, I believe, if it goes in the right order. I think the Chargers blew this game. But the Ravens have
They almost did.
their defense, man. It is good. And they signed Rocky Sin, who was a huge upgrade over, I forget who it was, but their corner, too, was a big need aside from Marlon Humphrey. And their defense ended the year last year. I think it was top 5 in EPA per play for the last 5 weeks of the season. They ended on a hot streak. The team's getting better. And offensively, we already talked about the huge changes they made. And with Tyler Huntley at quarterback and a worse receiving core, they probably should have beat the Bengals in the playoffs. That's how close this team was, and they got incredibly better offensively. They're going to be super well coached defensively, as John Harbaugh teams always are. I'm in on this team.
And they have a great kicker. When you can kick it from 60,
Best in the league.
That will win you.
66 yards, actually.
That will win you games in the playoffs.
Why do you remember that number so specifically, Zane?
Well, I remember it so specifically because the Lions were playing the Ravens, and after the play clock was at 0 for about 10 seconds, they called the timeout and kicked a 66-yard field goal for the win against them.
Lamar can't
And
throw.
was that the NFL record?
Yes, it was, Brody. You know who that was previously set by, too? Matt Prater, Lions kicker.
Didn't he make
Lions
that kick on
legend.
the Broncos, though?
He did.
It was kind of funny.
It wasn't on the Lions, yes, but he still played for the Lions.
I think it was funny, like watching Matt Prater go from like drilling 60-yarders to like barely being able to hit 50 yards. Like 2 years later, it's like, oh,
He
dude,
was still a
this guy sucks.
That's the Lamar highlight right here.
Dude, this guy, he's legit. And at number 3, the Buffalo Bills. This team was 13-3 last year, and I think they would have beat the Bengals at home. So I was gonna give them 14-3. This team was that good last
The
year.
Damar Hamlin game?
Yes. This team was that good last season, and I still have them at 3. That just this conference is the most stacked conference I've seen in my lifetime. Their biggest X factor, and I think he's gonna roll the clips here shortly, is Dalton Kincaid. He is going to come in. There's a good chance he passed him because it was Utah highlights. But Dalton Kincaid's gonna come in, and he's gonna be the guy that can get open against man coverage. What they struggled with last year is teams running man, double teaming Stephon Diggs. Gabe Davis wasn't getting open. Isaiah McKenzie wasn't getting open. I mean, who else are they gonna fucking throw the ball to? And Dawson Knox was a huge disappointment last season.
yes. Yes, he was.
So I think the big addition there is Dalton Kincaid, and then they also added Osiris Torrance, who's gonna really help them on the ground game. My big question mark for you and for the Bills, and I know Cooper's a big Bills guy, is how good is Spencer Brown going to be? Because if he sucks at right tackle, this team isn't going to sniff a Super Bowl. They just won't. I hate to be that guy, but they will not sniff a Super Bowl if Spencer Brown sucks. But defensively, Cooper, how do you think this team will have improved or at least stayed adequate to being a top 10 defense?
The biggest thing is they got their injuries back. Like, the Bills suffered too many injuries last year for the teams that they had to play. There was, like, sadly no way they would have won the Super Bowl or even gotten to it with having to defend who they had to defend. But getting Poyer back was huge. Losing Edmonds obviously is a big deal for them because Tremaine Edmonds was good when they sucked for them, but now he's gone. Getting Micah Hyde back, I mean, lost him week 2. And Damar Hamlin, which before his like heart failure on the middle of the field, he was a solid safety before that, and then all of a sudden you're playing against Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and Tyler Boyd, the best wide receiver trio in the league, with 4th, 5th, and 6th string safeties. Trey White he came back finally. He looked better at the end of the year, but he still needs a lot to improve on. But and they lost Von Miller on Thanksgiving. Like, the Bills had a solid defense, but they all got injured. Now that hopefully they come back somewhat like they do, how they play, and they'll be better.
Do you think Kyer Elam can step up and be the wide receiver or the cornerback too that this team needs?
I do indeed. He was a dog at Florida, guarding really good receivers that are now top 10 receivers in the league. So I do think he can be a very good corner too for the Bills.
All right, and Thomas, would you like to give your thoughts on the Bills? I know you kind of like you love Josh Allen. There's no going
Josh
around.
Allen's
You absolutely love that guy.
Josh Allen's my guy. I mean, there's no doubting Patrick Mahomes or Joe Burrow, but like I try my best to keep Josh Allen in that conversation. I just love the way he plays. Not afraid to lower the shoulder. Very strong arm. Very accurate. So yeah, this is my pick for the bowl this year.
Absolutely love it. And they're going to be healthy. I mean, they're going to be healthy. That's the biggest thing. And the biggest issue when they play the Bengals was DaQuan Jones was hurt. They didn't have a nose. They couldn't stop the run. And you know when you cannot load the box to stop the run against that team because they will absolutely obliterate you through the air. And, yeah, Leslie Frazier and Sean McDermott can hopefully coordinate a defense that doesn't totally, like, blow games. And Ken Dorsey can take a step forward. And at 2, we have the Bengals. I'm actually kind of generous putting them in a tier with the Chiefs just because the Chiefs are the Chiefs. But this team, I mean, what else can I say? Elite skill group, top 2 quarterback in the league.
I think you can keep the Bengals on the tier as the Chiefs. They beat them, at Arrowhead 2 years ago when they were down. What was it? 28 to 10? Well, it was 21 to 3, then 21 to 10 at
Yes.
halftime.
Yep.
Came back and won that game when Cincinnati got the ball first. No, Kansas City got the ball
at half,
first.
right? Yeah.
No, overtime.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
that's what
overtime,
you're talking
and
about. Yep.
They picked off Mahomes and got a field goal to go to the Super Bowl. And that Super Bowl, if Aaron Donald isn't Aaron Donald, they have a Super Bowl ring right now because Jamar Chase is in the end zone. And then if Joseph Osai doesn't slip and fall and hit Patrick Mahomes out of bounds, they could be in the Super Bowl again.
My big question mark for the Bengals, it was and it still is the offensive line. You signed Orlando Brown. Is that your replacement? Is it really? Is it Orlando Brown, who was probably the worst pass blocking tackle in the league last year, and he's going to start for you? I don't think that's how you defend Joe Burrow's blind side. That's what keeps them away from me considering them to be better than the Chiefs, because coaching wise they got it. Lou Arimena, I keep calling him Gino because the UConn basketball coach. But Lou he's an amazing defensive coordinator, and this guy that you're watching the highlights of, DJ Reader, is probably the most underrated player in the league. This dude's an absolute beast up front.
Losing Von Bell and Jesse Bates hurts a lot, though, in the secondary.
I was getting there, yeah. But I think the one reason I'm a little more optimistic is I think Dax Hill can step up and be that free safety that Bates was. He won't be as good as Bates, but he could be a couple years down the line. But Von Bell is going to be a bigger loss than people realize, in my opinion, because I don't think people know. Like, they don't have a direct replacement for him.
Nothing really to say there. No, he hit it right on the head.
And then at number 1, we got the Chiefs. What more is there to say? There's just their team really. If you look like roster to roster of other teams, there's teams with better rosters, but they don't have Mahomes, Kelsey, and Andy Reid. It's like really, that's really all there is to say. And they probably do have the best interior offensive line in the NFL though, with Joe Thuney, Creed Humphrey, and what's his name? I'm trying to think of the guy from Trey Smith.
Yeah.
They draft really well, and they draft a secondary that keeps up with some of the top offenses in the league with a bunch of guys like Brian Cook, Jalen Watson. These guys were not high picks, and they were starting
Don't forget
games.
Pacheco, too.
Isaiah
Basically their
Pacheco.
number 1, and he's a 7th-round pick.
Hey, we like that guy a lot. Isaiah Pacheco's a great
No one
one.
runs harder than him in the league.
And what really is funny about these guys is they run forward. They're 4 deep at tight end. A team that scores this many points and plays this much in space runs more like 2 tight end than you'd think, and it's really, really random. Instead of being this 11 personnel team that spreads everybody out that way, they run 12 personnel a ton with like your Jody Fortsons, your Noah Grays, your Blake Bell. Like, they do all this crazy stuff with them. It is a beautiful deployment of personnel.
So I'm not. There's
The
no
Eagles had a
doubting.
10-point lead in this game.
There's no doubting the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes and that entire roster, Andy Reid. But if they play on decent grass, what's the outcome of this Super Bowl?
They win.
You still think they win?
100%.
Yes. If the Chiefs lose and they blame it on the grass, what do you think? Do you think the Eagles win that Super Bowl, or do you think they win the Super Bowl? Like, I think that's just a cop out. Even Javon Hargrave said the 49ers would have beat the Eagles if Purdy didn't get hurt. And I think this Eagles defense last year, I'm going to say it, they were overrated. They were absolutely abysmal against good quarterbacks. It was the Fangio-style defense that I wasn't huge on. I really don't like Jonathan Gannon. I think they lose either way. And they also had a fun draft last year too. They like Karlaftis and McDuffie.
I love Karlaftis. Super high talent out of Purdue. I loved him. I thought he was going to be very, very good.
And if they can take steps up this year, this team could very easily repeat. But speaking about good drafts, we're going to bring in Zane here to cover the NBA draft, the winners and losers. And he's going to get you guys started off here.
Yeah, the NBA draft as a whole, I think, was very, very top-heavy. If you weren't in the top 3, you basically weren't going to get a player I thought is a all-star level. I think Brandon Miller going 2 was kind of crazy, and I will get into that in a minute. But I'm going to start off with the winners. Should I go 3-1 or 1-3?
3-1.
Okay, so I know everyone is going to think the Spurs should be number 1, that's a lot. But I put them at number 3 because They really just got Wembanyama, and I don't want to just put him up there because they won a lottery. You know what I mean? Like it was just chance. So I don't want to put him at number 1. So I put him at number 3 because just solely they got Wembanyama. Number 2, I got the Rockets because they got their guy Amen Thompson, but they also got Cam Whitmer at number 20 out of Villanova, and he was the steal of the draft. The Pistons, I thought, to be honest, were going to get him at number 5, but his injury concerns brought him down all the way to number 20. The Rockets stole him. I think that's the steal of the draft. If he can help his injuries, he will be the steal of the draft. He'll be a very good player, possibly all-star level player. Brody?
That was my favorite pick in the draft. I absolutely loved the Cam Whitmore pick. Him falling all the way to 20, and then why? I'm not going to go into your losers yet, but we're going to talk about him later with some of the teams that passed on him and took other wings that he was significantly better than, in our opinion. But speaking about the Spurs, too, I like how you didn't put them super high. They won the draft because they got Wemby, but they themselves didn't win the draft.
Exactly.
A couple balls won them the draft.
It's just they won the draft, quotation marks, just because they won the lottery. And if you want to say it was rigged or not, it was. It might have been. Personally, I think it might, because Popovich, if he didn't get Wemby, he was probably going to retire. He's old. He got Tim Duncan. He got David Robinson, all number 1s, and it's just it seemed a little set up for him. But
how good do you think the Spurs are going to be this year? They got Victor Wembanyama and Keldon Johnson manning that front court. That's a very talented front court.
It is, but Keldon Johnson. He was playing the USA team.
Keldon Johnson did?
Yeah, he did. He came off the bench, but that's how I kind of got introduced to him. I was watching the Olympics.
Very good player. Keldon Johnson's a very good player.
Underrated, and a lot of people don't know his name. But I think they'll be all right. Probably I'd put him in the play-in. I know everyone's going to be like, oh, Wemby, they're winning the NBA championship. Sure. I think he's going to he's got to put on some weight, obviously. Everybody knows that. He's going to get pushed around in the NBA. Can you imagine LeBron posting him up? And you guys remember when Kenny Lofton, who's a G League player, was bullying him in the Olympics?
Yeah,
but Kenny Lofton's fat, so
that's not an American power, baby. Rah!
All right, Cooper. So anyway, my number 1 biggest winner in the NBA draft was the Utah Jazz.
Absolutely.
I absolutely loved what they did. They got my boy Taylor Hendricks out of UCF. I wanted the Pistons to take him at 5. He's 6'9", 7'2" wingspan, shoots 40% from 3, lights out, great defender. He's super long. He's not only tall, but he's super, super long. He just, his defensive upside is better than his three-point shooting upside, and his three-point shooting upside is very good. Coming off screens, pulling up, I think this guy could be a good scorer, an elite 3-and-D player. My comp might be like Trevor Ariza, but even better.
See, I was going to ask you about that because I know we talked about him before the draft, about how good of a 3-and-D player he could be. Do you think I think he might. Do you think he has the potential to be the best 3-and-D player in the NBA?
I do, but it will take him some time. This kid is only 19 years old. And that's why also I wanted to draft him. Plenty of room to grow. You know what I mean? He could develop something else. Whether if it's a mid-range, it's a dribble penetration to the, facilitating. He could develop something else in the league because he's already got the 3-and-D down. But as a pure 3-and-D player, I think he could be one of the best in the league because there's not as many as big like PJ Tucker is 6'5". You know what I mean? And he's one of the best. So can you imagine a PJ Tucker type talent, but 6'9" with a 7'2" wingspan?
And way more athletic.
Right. Because this guy can catch lobs too, or rebounds for putbacks. This guy is not just a 3-and-D player, but that's what he's gonna be mostly in the league. But he could develop something new.
I absolutely agree. I wish the Pistons drafted him because by the time he might turn in that elite 3-and-D player is when right around the time that I think we'd start competing really for the NBA championship.
Right around the corner when Ivy and Cade are going to come into their own with Jalen Duren and James Wiseman maybe on the team.
And this might have been your favorite pick of the draft, but what do you think about that Sensenball pick? I know that was your guy too.
I was going to get to him, but I know you are also big fans of George out of Baylor.
This is absolutely Keontae George is my guy. I absolutely love guards that are coached super well in college. That's one thing that I really love in draft prospects. And when you're coached by Scott Drew, who has developed some really good guards coming into the league, that's a huge like turn on per se for me. And my favorite thing about Keontae George is I think he's the best pure scorer in the draft. He can score the basketball, and that is a hard trait to find in a freshman guard.
I was just going to say that the Utah Jazz got 2 elite scorers. They got their 3-and-D player. Now they're going to go get their scorers. And they did that with Keontae George and Bryce Sensabaugh. For me, I'm more of a Bryce Sensabaugh fan. To you, you're more of a Keontae George fan. Bryce Sensabaugh does more work in the mid-range as Keontae George does on the pull-up game. Rather that's 3. He does more of his work on the 3-point line. Yep. Sensabaugh could back you down. He's more of a pull-up range guy. He did that at Ohio State. He actually won a game in the Big Ten tournament, like basically by himself because no one else is playing. Bruce Thornton did a little bit too. I actually am very high on Bruce Thornton because he's kind of like he's a guard, but he's like thick. He's like thick, man. He's so strong. So I'm pretty high on him, but the level of scores the Utah Jazz got, it's gonna be tremendous. In this league, you got to score. I know everyone talks about defense. All these old heads would talk about how defense is the only thing that matters and offensive.
The same ones that don't like Lamar Jackson are the ones saying you gotta hold teams under 80 a game.
Right. Yeah. Defense is the only thing that matters. If you can't play defense, it won't go to you for. Well, these guys, they can score with anybody, and they are absolutely elite offensive players.
So if the Jazz win an NBA championship in like 4 or 5 years down the road, do you think this is the draft that sparks that?
I mean, yeah, to win an NBA championship, that means you're going to score the ball at an elite clip, and these 2 players are definitely going to help to that. Adding Taylor Hendricks 3-point shooting, and also you can't just win. And I was just hating on old heads that say defense is the only thing that matters, but you're going to have to play defense a lot. That Denver Nuggets team was definitely a slept-on defensive team. You got Jokic. Everyone makes fun of Jokic being a defender. He's an all right defender. You can't back him down because he's thick.
Big.
Yeah, he's just too. He's not a above the rim type player, blocking your shots, pinning your shots on the glass. But he does what he needs to do.
And he goes straight up like the old heads love, hands straight up, not fouling.
And you got a KCP elite defender who was very good. Bruce Bowen off the bench was very good defender. And Christian Brown. He was about a 3-and-D player, but I liked him better for his defense.
Way better on defense. And Aaron Gordon, too. Like, this is a lockdown. Their team was built around wings that could defend.
Aaron Gordon's the one who guarded LeBron. And did you guys know LeBron was playing with a torn tendon in his foot the whole time?
Yeah, that's why he's my king.
Okay. that sounded a little weird, but all right. Now I'm gonna go on to. Oh, by the way, Cooper, do you have anything to add on what I was talking about with the Jazz?
No, they got 2 top 10 worthy picks at 16 and like 12. Was it 12 and 16?
So, something like that.
When you get two guys that could easily go in the top 8. Even
they got Sensabaugh at 28.
Yeah,
he's a lottery talent.
Yeah, so you have 3 players who are lottery worthy that you got in the late first round, like not in the lottery.
And to me, they kind of did the old Brad Holmes effect where they took a guy with injury concerns later, you know what I mean? And then like super high upside with injury concerns, and that might work in their favor. You know what I mean? You know what I mean, Brody?
Yeah, I think that's in most sports. If you let a guy fall to you that's more talented, I think you're winning the draft.
Like
yeah, just take him.
Michael Porter Jr.
Absolutely.
Like no one picked Michael Porter Jr. Michael Porter Jr. was.
Speaking of wings that can score the ball that help win championships.
Yeah, that's not important today. Well, anyway, I'm going on to the losers of the draft. I'm going to start one, and then I'm going to work my way down. My biggest loser of the draft is the Orlando Magic. I know Brody isn't going to like this, and Tommy and Coop's a State fan, but Jet Howard and Anthony Black. See, to me, Anthony Black's he's a very good player. I don't think his ceiling is very high. I think his floor is very high because he's good at a lot of things, but he's not great at one thing. You know what I mean?
It's called he's a something master of none, good at everything, jack of all trades, but a master of none. That's the phrase we're looking for.
Yeah, so that's why I think his floor is very high. I just don't know how much he can grow from that. And Jet Howard, it's either it was his dad's fault at Michigan, or I don't know, because he's a very good. I'm gonna hand you to Cooper.
As a Michigan State fan, I actually do like Jet Howard's game. He can score the ball. Does he play any defense? No, but sometimes you just need to score the ball, and Jet Howard can get buckets. The only thing that I have against the Jet Howard pick is who was available and what they wanted. If you want shooters, just take Jordan Hawkins, who was literally 3 picks after you, and obviously Whitmore. Should have picked Whitmore over him.
Biggest one.
And Grady Dick.
And they're like, what are we doing? And as a Magic fan,
Yep.
I was genuinely okay with the Anthony Black pick, right? I think at 6, it's a little high, but he was one of the guys that I really like. I think he's a jack of all trades, master of none. But as we talk about Hendricks, as a young 19-year-old, I think he could develop a new trait or get to become the elite level at like a facilitating, because he's a good facilitator. But this pick, man, you could have traded up 2 spots and drafted Taylor Hendricks, or you let Grady Dick, Jordan Hawkins, and Cam Whitmore all fall to you, and you take the worst wing out of the 3 or out of the 4. I'm like, what are we doing here, man?
Yeah, you guys basically took the words that I was gonna say. I don't hate the Jet Howard. I just don't like that they took him over. I feel like they almost was pressured into a legacy pick. You know what I mean? Because Juwan was drafted by the Magic. I feel like it was almost more they were pressured into it than a player they actually wanted. So that's why I put them as my biggest loser. Number 2, I'm going to go with the Charlotte Hornets, and it's not because of the player. I think Brandon Miller was a great pick. It's because their organization after that pick is a mess. You have players coming out saying, why didn't we draft Scoot? I thought Scoot was better. You got Michael Jordan, who's leaving this year, sold the team.
The pick?
Yeah, he made the pick. How? And Michael's Jordan.
Sold the team a week before the draft and still made the pick like that.
Can we talk about a fucking disaster of what happened that week for Hornets fans? I feel terrible. That was a fucking disaster.
For the
Even-
10 of you, I'm sorry.
Even the mascot was like, I know you guys seen that video.
Yeah.
The mascot was in horror that they drafted Brandon Miller over Scoot Henderson.
He's gonna team up great with Miles Bridges.
Oh yeah, they both can pull the trigger at elite clip. You know what I mean on that. But so anyway, it's just the organization's such a mess, and you guys know Michael Jordan's draft history is not the best.
Frank Kaminsky at 8, baby.
Michael Kidd-Gilchrist, bust.
Williams.
Michael Carter Williams. Somehow he was Rookie of the Year.
And
then look at him
bust.
now. You guys don't even know who that name is. So that should say enough. So I don't hate the player. I think it's a good fit. But as an organization, they are a mess just solely based on that pick right now.
And just passing on Scoot Henderson is a fireball defense in itself. But as much as I think Brandon Miller is a talented player, if you have a guy that could have fell because of off the court issues, you wanna bring him into a locker room with like a bunch of veteran presence, like the Eagles do with Jalen Carter to help him, and you bring him in. And I'm not trying to be that guy, but with Miles Bridges, who he already got in trouble, and where's the veteran presence at? And you got LaMelo Ball, you got LeVar Ball. Is that your veteran presence? Like, I really don't know the direction they're headed there.
27 days, 27 nights.
Never lost, as LeVar Ball would say. But my third biggest loser of the NBA draft is the Sacramento Kings. And the reason why, I don't think it's necessarily the players. I don't think they got great players. I think they were one pick short of who they thought they were going to get, which is Chris Murray out of Iowa. They got his brother, Keegan Murray, and they did need a forward. And Chris Murray is an elite scorer. He's left-handed, and you got to add in the left-handed factor, because you guys all know when you're playing with someone who's left-handed, and then like Coop's left-handed. How many times have you just blown by someone because they're not used to just guarding a left-handed person?
Yeah, it's pretty easy. They sit on you. They sit on you a little bit, and it's like, oh, well, thank you.
And I get the NBA is different. These guys are playing defense all the time, but I think pairing him up with his brother, who broke the NBA three-point record as a rookie. Well, no, the rookie and three-point record, not the NBA three-point record. So that, I believe that's who they really wanted, and I think after the Trailblazers took him a pick before, that they just panicked and they traded down and they selected Colby Jones. I think he's a good bench piece. He's a facilitator. He's an okay defender, but he's that's all he's gonna be. I think he's more of like a Killian Hayes, just bench type of player. I don't think he's gonna ever see any starting minutes. But when you take him at 30, what are you really expecting? You know what I mean? That late in the NBA draft. So that's why I don't necessarily hate it. I just think they lost at the draft just solely because they were one pick short of who they were gonna get. That always stings. And also they got Jalen Slauson. And people are already talking about how he's going to be in the G League for his first year, maybe 2 years. That Mike Brown doesn't really know what to do with him. He's a good defender. He has very little offensive upside. So that's why the Kings are my third biggest losers.
I actually like Jalen Slauson, and I don't think how many guys that you pick after pick 50 are going to end up not in the G League, at least for the first season. I do think he is an athlete. He's a great defender.
Very, very good athlete. I like his defense.
Offensively, you're going to have to see what you got because I don't think he's going to be a premium 3-and-D guy. But I don't think if you're drafting at pick 54, a defender that could be a 7 or 8 in your rotation that can come and play great defense, catch lobs, attack the glass, I don't think that's a bad pick. But I do agree with Zane that this team lost the draft because how close they were to getting who they wanted to get, and they just couldn't get him.
Yeah, I mean, how many times, especially as Lions fans, have we heard, we were so close to this guy. We almost got this guy. And the Kings just went through that in the draft.
And then speaking about Detroit sports and drafts, we're going to bring Tommy back on, and he's going to talk a little bit what the Red Wings did in the draft and in free agency afterwards.
So I actually wasn't going to talk about the draft. I just wanted to bring to highlight – yeah, sorry. I was just going to bring to highlight how active Yzerman was yesterday and into last night.
He's that dude.
So I have pulled up just last night. He re-signed Matt Luff. I mean, he's a depth defender to a 1-year deal or 1 year 2-way contract. Kim Koskinen from the Oilers trade. I didn't like that because I would preferred we just stuck with Yamamoto. I know.
Yzerman wanted though. He didn't want Yamamoto.
Yeah, I think Yamamoto was the better player. I don't like that we bought him out, but we signed him to a 2-year contract. We signed Justin Hull, who I don't like as well, because there was a reason he was a healthy scratch in the Leafs playoffs.
But we're gonna blind follow Yzerman.
Yeah, I mean it's Yzerman, so we just have to trust it. Then we signed him to a 3-year contract. Then James Reimer, we signed him.
I was happy with that.
Yeah, that's okay. He's gonna help out Kosa for sure. And we're also supposedly not re-signing Ned, which I don't like.
He already got signed.
He did?
With the Penguins.
Don't like that. I thought Ned had a great end of the year, but James Reimer, very solid.
We have a better tandem of 3 at goalie going into this year than we did last year, though.
Yes. And then Gustav Lindstrom, re-signed him to like a almost league minimum.
We were happy with that.
Yes, very happy with that. I like Lindstrom. And who'd we sign from Philly? This is not in here, but we signed one more from Philly. Oh, well, this isn't from Philly. This is from Colorado. JT Compher. He played with Michigan or in Michigan with Larkin and Kopp. So I really like that pick.
People were talking about how
Or not pick, sign.
a little high.
Yeah, but it is 5 years.
It is, and the thing is though, if you want your guy this day and age in the NFL, if you want your guy, you or NHL, you got to pay for him.
Yeah.
You have to overpay a little bit for your guy, and I think Compher is going to come in and probably be our third line center. And he's
Him or Rass, but you can't go wrong with either one of those two. They play like the same role.
And you just make the organizational depth significantly better, and you make our top 12 forwards. They're just going to be better because of JT Compher, and I'm very happy with that signing.
Then we also signed another goalie, Alex Lyon, who played really well in Florida last year, from what I saw.
Yep.
Love that pick up. And then I'm trying to find
The Gostisbehere.
Gostisbehere. Yeah, Shane Gostisbehere. I really like that. That's my favorite signing so far because he was in Philly. He wasn't going to do anything in Philly. Very solid defenseman, and I think he's going to do a lot of great things for us.
Best signing that we made, and potentially the best signing in free agency. But my big question to you is having another defenseman and signing from Toronto. What's his name again?
Justin Hull.
Hull. Yep. How big of a clog is that to our organizational depth, especially with the young guys that are going to come up and compete for spots?
So, personally, I think the only other young defenseman that could really make a run is help me, Edmondson this year. I don't think Hull's going to play too much. I think that can be a guy that's either a healthy scratch or gets flipped at either later on or at the deadline.
But you cannot pay a guy $3.4 a year to be a healthy scratch.
Yeah, I know.
So that's my.
That's
question.
probably a guy we flip.
Hopefully.
Hopefully. But Lindstrom's going to spend time in the NHL and AHL. He got signed to a two-way contract. Sider and Wallman, Sherratt. Those are all solid pieces. Gostisbehere is going to be a solid piece, and then Edmondson should fill out that 6. So I don't know what we're going to do with Hull, but yeah, I like the Gostisbehere move though for sure.
And where do you think our young guys are going to slot into the team? Just talking about, do you think Kosa? It's going to be hard for him to get moved up. Goalies take their time, but what about Marco Kasper Berge? How do you think he's going to do?
So I think
Edmondson? Do you think they're all going to be on the team?
I do. I think Bergeron solidified that last year. I've heard a lot of great things about Marco Kasper, and he's doing really well in development camp right now. And then who's the super tall guy? Soderblom. I think he is also going to find a way to squeeze into that roster just because of how much potential he showed last year.
And if this is our roster, like we probably are going to improve over last season, but not by a super marginal amount. Like, this is a tough division, but year in and year out, we consistently get better and better, and Stevie Y's taking the long-term approach. And in a couple of years, we'll really be where we want to be. But these Red Wings fans that want to win the Stanley Cup next year, you got to relax a little bit.
Steve Eisman's doing a great job. We're going Tampa wasn't built in 1 year, and Tampa's still like a powerhouse. I mean, granted they're losing players every year, but like for them losing players every year and still being this good, Eisman built that team, and he's doing the exact same thing to Detroit. So we're just gonna relax. I know a lot of people were upset, including me, that he gave up at the trade deadline last year and trading so many assets, but it's what you got to do to build a super team, and that's what he's doing.
What are the odds that Axel Palinka and Danielson, where do you think they start, and how do you think they play?
I think they'll either go back and play in a junior team overseas somewhere or in the AHL. I don't think either will make the roster.
Oh, but do you think they'll do good in GR?
Oh, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah. From what I heard, which one was it?
Danielson?
Yeah, Danielson. He seems to be the real deal, but I just don't think. He'll crack the team.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of good things about him. Kasper said he was the best center that he's ever played against. Not Kasper. Bedard said that, and that's a huge compliment from a guy that's as honest as Connor Bedard.
Wasn't I'm pretty sure Bedard roomed with him at the draft too. So.
Yeah, that's gonna be fun.
But yeah, so that was just a little insight into the NHL. I'm going to oh nope. Sorry, I didn't prepare too much. This was supposed to be a small segment before we came to Coop. So.
Oh, we signed Christian Fisher from Arizona, and Kelly was asking about that. It was 1 year for 1.1. What do you think about that?
Isn't he an older guy? I'm pretty sure he is.
He's an older guy, I believe.
So I think that's just gonna be another one of those depth roles.
Oh, and we forgot one big signing, Daniel Sprung.
I didn't even see that one.
Really? We signed for 1 year, $2 million. That's a cheap contract he's gonna play for, and he scored 20 goals last year.
Yeah. Yeah, and he's another one of those guys that can help our younger guys develop. He's been around the league. So yeah, I like that as well. Just hearing about it now. So thank you for pointing that out, Kelly. But yeah, so that's a little insight into Detroit in the NHL. I'm gonna hand it off to Coop to send us home.
Alrighty, I have the most fun and interesting topic as of to the date. I got the topic of NBA free agency, and I'm gonna start off that this free agency it's definitely an interesting one. The big names, all like Kyrie Irving, Draymond, Chris Middleton, Kyle Kuzma, Cam Johnson, Harrison Barnes, Jakob Pertl, Russell Westbrook, Brooke Lopez, Jeremy Grant, Herb Jones, and Harrison Barnes all stay with their teams that they were respectively on. Which, I have a question for you, Zane. Which deal do you think was the best out of those guys?
Well, I think that Draymond staying is probably is the best deal for the team, but I think Harrison Barnes re-signing is the most impactful because I don't think that Harrison Barnes. I'm very high on Harrison Barnes. I wanted the Pistons to sign him. He like Brody says, like he's just a going to work with your lunch pail guy. You know what I mean? He gets rebounds. He scores the ball at an all right efficiency. He rebounds, like I said, and he's just such a good player, so slept on, and he just does what he needs to do to win.
Yeah, and he brings that veteran presence for the Kings, who still need it because they are a very young team. I'd also say Westbrook.
No.
Listen, I know Russell Westbrook obviously isn't the Russell Westbrook he used to be.
Pronouncing his name wrong.
Oh, I'm gonna no,
Westbrook.
guys. It's a Russell Westbrook, and
Russell Westbrook.
he had a good playoff series against the Suns, and I think he'll fit with
Who won that series?
the Suns won, but
Okay.
here's the thing: the Clippers lost their two best players in the first two games of the series, and the Clippers won game one when Kawhi actually played. Kawhi's gone all of a sudden. Look what happens. Paul George didn't even play the series, and Russell Westbrook made that series still interesting. It went to 5, but it was interesting. And then I also really liked the Middleton signing. I am a huge Giannis fan. Always want to see Giannis succeed, and having Middleton as his second guy is huge because I love Giannis. I will defend Giannis every day, but that man will never be a consistent jump shooter. And having Chris Middleton to be able to hit those big shots, especially at the end of the game, will help. And if Chris Middleton doesn't get injured in 2022, I do think the Bucks go back to back. So that is a thing. I do think. Obviously, this year they just got pummeled by the Heat, but that's just what happens.
Jimmy Buckets, baby.
And speaking of the Heat, they've had.
Interesting.
They're in a tough hole. They need Damian Lillard.
All I'm gonna say is, what happened to all that Heat culture I was hearing about?
Yeah, all of a sudden you see Gabe Vincent goes to the Lakers, who had an amazing have had an amazing free agency so far. I will get to that later. But you lose Gabe Vincent, you lose Max Strus to the Cavs, which good for Max Strus for getting that money. I think Max Strus is awful still, but hey, money.
Do you think a lot of these players are getting overpaid because of how good they played in April, May, and June?
100%.
Yes, we see this trend. Like these role players just get an absolute crazy amount of money just because of their playoff runs. And don't get me wrong, you need to have success in the playoffs, but anyone else can do it. But if you don't have a star, then it won't matter. So you see, and then Dame requested a trade as of yesterday, and as of today, there's we don't know if he's gonna be traded. Obviously, he wants to go to the Heat, and the Heat want him, and the Heat are gonna at least give up Tyler Hero and Duncan Robinson and definitely more picks. Where do we think is Dame gonna end up as a Heat player?
I haven't really seen another team that's really offering to give what the Heat are willing to give for Dame. And even if they get Dame, how good are they going to be? I know we talk about how these guys overperformed and are getting paid because of it, but I mean, they're role players. They're losing a lot.
They lost Gabe Vincent, Max Strus, and then they're gonna lose Duncan Robinson and Tyler Hero at least. I think that Portland even wants Caleb Martin.
So we got a comment asking what do we think about the Draymond Green deal. It's 4 years, $100 million. I'm impartial of how I feel about that right now. I got to see how the team is playing because Draymond Green is probably the best role player to ever be in the NBA. I don't think they win the chips without him. But I don't think he's as easily replaceable as people make him sound. But is he really worth that much money? Like that much money? I don't know, but we'll see. If they win another championship, it's going to be the best deal. If they flame out, everyone's going to be asking why he got paid. So I'm impartial to that right now.
And our boy Kelly, who's been a great commenter today, says that it's a partial. It is possible. It is a possible 3-team deal with Dame. I just want to see if it goes through. That's really all I want to see. I don't really care who's a part of it. I just want to see where Dame is going to land.
And I want to talk about the Pistons for a second. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to just cut you off. But do you guys think Bojan will be on this team when the season starts? Because for me, I'm going after. I'm trying to ship him off right now. He just played great. You could, without Cade, you see the numbers he was putting up. I'm trying to go. Maybe the Lakers would want him. LeBron needs shooters. So, and if the Lakers are calling, I'm like, all right, give us a first-round pick and give me Jalen Hood-Schifino.
I think Bojan will be on the team until the trade deadline. I think we'll trade him and ship him away at the trade deadline, if I'm being 100%. And speaking of the Lakers, I honestly think the Lakers have had the best free agency so far. Dennis Schroeder leaves, which I personally don't like Dennis Schroeder, but I do know that he actually is a decent player, and he gets under the other team's best player's skin. But they do add Gabe Vincent, Cam Reddish, Taurean Prince. I mean, Cam Reddish, I feel like always has a chance to break out, but it's been it's their 4th year now in the league, all of them.
Yep.
And time's running out on him. But a big
him over Zion. At least he plays.
Yeah, and at least he plays, and he plays on the court, not on the Pornhub. But
That's blasphemous.
but a big signing for them that I really like is Jackson Hayes. It gives AD more of a break, and Jackson Hayes can block shots, and like for playoff reasons, it throws another body at the centers, especially Jokic, that can like because no one can really hold Jokic, but just throwing a bunch more relaxed AD.
Tires ass out.
You know who
Yeah.
did the best on Jokic in that series? LeBron James. He did.
He
He
did.
did. Go back and watch
He
the tape.
did.
LeBron was the best defender. I know there's all this noise about Rui Hachimura, the Jokic stop. No, it was LeBron James. If he wasn't 38 years old, if you put him back in his prime,
They would have won that series.
They would have won that series.
And then probably the biggest reason why the Lakers have won free agency is who they've kept in Austin Reeves and Rui Hachimura. They did keep D'Angelo Russell, but
Trash.
yeah, he just didn't help the Lakers at all.
Okay, maybe he's not trash. He's a great regular season performer. When they added him, they got 3-point shooting, they got facilitating. He's a great player off the pick and roll. But when you shoot 13% from three with a plus minus -47 in the playoffs for the series, there's a problem, and that cannot happen again. And they were Darvin Ham, the Lakers coach, wanted to sit him out, but they had to start him. Like, he didn't want to start him, and his quote was, "If we don't start him, we will lose him." So he kind of sounds like a cancer guy to me.
Yeah, we'll see how that goes. But keeping Austin Reeves and Rui Hachimura was huge. At first, it was game 1 of the Grizzlies series. Rui Hachimura just went off, and at first, in my opinion, I was like, whatever. It's just game 1 of a playoff game. He's just a role player to step it up. And then you realize that he was that good the whole playoff series, and you're like, wow, this guy is very good, and he has improved immensely. And Austin Reeves is a bucket getter. He can draw fouls. I mean, the way he draws fouls, sometimes it's not fun for the fan because he just throws his head back and gets a call, but in the end, that helps you win basketball games. And we're going to talk about the biggest losers right now in the NBA free agency. The Houston Rockets. What are you doing? Like, that's all I can say. You spend – it was –
3 for 130.
Dylan
Yeah.
Brooks.
So you three players combined $242 million in contract. Fred VanVleet, Jock Landale, which Good for like Jock Landale gets a $32 million contract for attempting to guard Nikola Jokic. The game that Jock Landale played, they lost by 40 at home. And Dylan Brooks getting an $80 million deal is just blasphemous.
20 million was bad enough.
A year.
But I
He's
think
making that a year now.
I know 20 million was bad enough, but I think the fact that you're paying him for 4 years is what makes it even worse.
Like Dylan Brooks is awful. I don't get how he gets 80 million. I feel like he fit like the Grizzlies scheme until like obviously the playoffs where he completely until he hurt his teams. Like he fit like the Grizzlies like persona, tough guy, and then all of a sudden he just did a 180 for the worst. Like he couldn't shoot the ball anymore.
They left him open on 30. They were daring him to shoot in that series.
And Houston does have a premium defender in Tari Eason too, so it's like they already have their really high level wing defender. They could use more defenders, but like, why come in with that? And then we got a comment saying, "What are your opinions on the Vucevic deal? What'd you think about that?"
Vucevic.
I think
Did it just go through?
Vucevic is a very, very slept on player.
Yeah.
I with the Bulls. See, the Bulls kind of overpaid him a little bit. I'm not talking about his previous deal.
He's getting paid the same as Dylan Brooks, so I think I'm okay with him.
He deserved that. He deserves that money over Dylan Brooks.
For sure.
But he's just.
The Bulls are in a weird.
To me, he'd be a really good third option on the winning team. You know what I mean? If the Lakers had him, I would be like, okay, they're solid. Because him, AD, Vucevic, they would be in LeBron. Yeah. I'd be like, that's a very, very good third option on a winning team.
Yeah, I respect it.
But Dylan Brooks is a great, just in street clothes sitting on the bench because he does not deserve that much money at all.
He does poke bears.
Yeah,
But back to Nikola Vucevic. I mean, I do like it. He is like the Bulls have a good three. It's just after the three, their lineup is horrible, sadly. And like I love Alex Caruso, but he's just sadly like not as good as we get him credit. He is the GOAT though, don't get me wrong. But like DeRozan, Levine, and Vucevic are a good big three. It's just they don't have any help around them. Yeah. And the Fred VanVleet is like 6 foot. Don't get me wrong, Fred VanVleet is a dog, but like he's undersized and I don't think he's that special. And he got a bag, which honestly for no reason, especially with a team that has 15 guards. I know we all seen the Josh Christopher and Jalen Green video. I know Jalen Green is hurting that Josh Christopher was a part of the Dylan Brooks sign and trade. So, and speaking of the Grizzlies, they did sign Derrick Rose to a 2-year deal. That's good. That's good for their locker room. They need that veteran presence. Derrick Rose, who played at Memphis in college, obviously made Memphis basketball relevant. That helps, and hopefully he can help contain Ja a little bit because we all know what Ja does in his spare time. And the worst move that they made in the offseason, Desmond Bane being the first player in your team's history to get a $200 million plus deal is absolutely blasphemous. Other players that got maxes in this offseason: LaMelo Ball, Tyrese Halliburton, Domantas Sabonis. Good for them making their money. I think they're all worthy of a max.
Super happy Tyrese got it. I'm super happy for him. He's a great player.
Yeah, he was
drafted Killian Hayes over him.
right.
Troy Weaver disaster class.
Right, and speaking of the Pacers, they made some interesting moves. They gave Halliburton his max. They traded for Obi Toppin, and they signed Bruce Brown. I think they gave Bruce Brown too much money. Again, another playoff run from a role player, but hey, he got his bag.
They did get better.
Yeah, and they got better. They're trying to make a move to win.
Do you know what vibes I kind of get right now? Do you remember when the Rams won the Super Bowl and then Sean McVay is going up there, run it back, and then Mike Malone gets on, says the same thing. Oh, you think we're not re-signing Bruce Brown? He's coming right back, and then they lose him.
He probably had 20% alcohol in his blood, but
I'm getting big vibes from that right now.
So you think like the Nuggets like just
They're
won't?
not gonna
Like, they're
make the playoffs like the Rams did, but I don't know if they're gonna win the title
They're
back to
gonna get
back
worse
like
and worse,
everyone's
man.
saying.
And then a thing about the Jeremy Grant signing, I thought Jeremy Grant got way too much money. Jeremy Grant is a bucket, don't get me wrong, but I just thought it was too much money. He indeed, like, obviously, Scoot will need somebody if Dame is gone, which he probably will be in the next 48 hours. So I get why you want to keep him, but I think it was a little reach of an overpay.
Well, he'll probably be gone right after we end the live, because right after we ended the live last time, there was a perfect game and something else. What else happened? Otani had that great performance as well. so,
10Ks, 2 home run
yeah. So it's probably right after we end the live is when that will happen.
Oh, can we talk about the best deal of the offseason? Herb Jones going back to the Pelicans, baby.
4 years, $54 million. Definitely good signing for the Pelicans. They definitely needed it. Another thing, Dante DiVincenzo, 4-year, $50 million to the Knicks. The only reason that's relevant is because it is a reunion with all of his Villanova buddies. You know, maybe Mikal Bridges will join the Knicks sometime soon. The New York Wildcats are the Villanova Knicks. And then the last thing I want to say is the Detroit Pistons. They made 2 signings, well, 2 trades. The first trade they made was right before free agency. They got Joe Harris, which I like that.
I want to speak on this. There's talk out there saying that the Pistons didn't get better from that trade. If you believe that, I don't know what to say to you. You're an absolute idiot. How is adding a guy who shoots 43% from 3 for free? We got him for free. We gave up nothing and 2 second-round picks, and you're angry and saying the Pistons didn't get better? Oh, I don't know what to say to you, but that is completely wrong.
And we wanted Cam Johnson from the Nets, but the amount of money that Cam Johnson got paid, I mean, Cam Johnson, good for him for getting the bag, but I'm definitely glad we got Joe Harris for free when we would have
Joe Harris for what we paid than Cam Johnson.
for sure. And then again, the Brook Lopez 2-year, $48 million deal. Yeah, the Rockets pursued him, which I think that's why they rushed and gave Landell an awful contract. But it's good that he's staying with the Bucks. It keeps their defense up to where it is because the Bucks have a top 2 defense in the league. And then the last trade that the Pistons made was it was NBA free agency night. They traded 2 or 1 second-round pick for Monte Morris. How do we feel about that?
Joe Harris pick for it, right?
Yeah.
Potentially.
How do we feel about Monte Morris?
Okay, when I first read it, I thought it was Markieff Morris. But then I had to go back. But he's a guard, right?
Right.
So I really don't know how to feel about it because we already have 2 guards coming off our bench. I'm impartial about it. I got to see how he plays. Is he going to play in front of Sasser? I don't like it. But Monte Morris, he was good. He was great in college. So I just got to see how it goes.
He was just a decent bench point guard for the Nuggets when he used to play. But he did get beat out by Bones Highland later on, so we're going to see how good he is now.
I think his signing is kind of it might not be good for Killian is all I'm going to say because we can't have 3 guards coming off our bench. So Killian, it might be bad. It might be time for him to go.
Yeah. And the last thing, this is going to be a prediction from all you guys. All right, James Harden, obviously, he took his player option, but the Sixers want to trade him. Where do we think James Harden will land?
Whataburger.
I don't know. I heard some noise of that he's going to come back to the Rockets, but
That'd be a clusterfuck.
I'm going to say the Rockets.
Okay, Brody, are you sticking with Whataburger?
Well, I really don't know. I don't know what other team I really think he's going to go to. I don't know. I mean, I don't see they talked about, was it the Knicks that they talked about?
Knicks and Clippers.
The Clippers make no sense. Who are they going to get from him?
With
Kawhi and Paul
They can't
George?
have Russ and James Harden.
Yeah, and Ross, they have a bunch of old players that were good 5 years ago that they would have the best team in the league with.
Right.
And then I don't see them trading them in conference to the Knicks, so I don't really know.
I have nothing. Like I said, I think it might be the Rockets.
Yeah, I'm just gonna go with the Clippers. That's been the biggest noise that he might go to the Clippers. Tom, I know you don't know much basketball, so do you have any prediction?
Just say a name.
I'm okay.
Say a restaurant.
Five Guys.
In and out. Yeah, that's in California.
In and out. So Tommy is also going with the Clippers. And that's going to conclude our second podcast of the day. It was definitely entertaining, way more fun. And
I will say one of our notes from last podcast was to maybe keep it a little shorter, and that was an hour and a half, and now we're approaching 2 hours. So
we will work on shortening the podcast. We get carried away.
Thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure to share this with your friends. Please like and subscribe.
leave comments, questions for what you want us to cover next time, and then tune in for later this week.
We out.